you'll get roughly a 10 by 10 foot coverage area. If you're going to put that directly over a dining table outside, you'll fully be heating up that table. It's something that's going to be in your backyard, so you want to be happy with the overall aesthetics. Customers hook it up to their Alexa, and they can tell their Alexa, please turn on my heaters to 60%.
Gas versus electric. Gas for more heat and electric for better aesthetic. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Modern Blaze Show. I am your host, Anastasia Vankova, and today we are talking about outdoor heaters, also known as patio heaters. Our guest today is an expert in the subject. He's been working in the outdoor heating industry for the past 3 years with AEI Corporation, the West Coast distributor of outdoor heating products and barbecue grills. He knows what he's talking about. He is a customer service manager, so he has the first-hand experience helping different types of customers figure out the best outdoor heating solutions for their projects. In this conversation, we cover a lot of ground. It's value-packed. We start with different types of outdoor heaters, pros and cons of each type, gas versus electric, what is infrared. Grant shares some of his tips on maintenance and installation to make sure you get the best use out of your heaters. Towards the end, he shares his favorite outdoor heater that he wouldn't mind installing in his backyard. So make sure you watch this video until the end to find out. Here's my conversation with Grant Green. Hi, Grant. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Happy to be here.
So to start, why don't you tell us about your background in the outdoor heating industry?
I work for AEI Corporation. We're a distributor on the West Coast for patio heaters. I've been working here for about 3 years now. I'm the customer service manager, so I deal with a lot of customers to determine which heaters would be best for their outdoor space, seeing the orders come through from the beginning where we're just going over their different options, all the way through their installation and making sure everything works well with the construction crews doing the installs.
Oh, that's great. You have so much experience, boots on the ground.
Yep.
That's awesome. I have a lot of questions for you.
Let's hear them.
To start, why don't you give us an overview of the different outdoor heating options available on the market right now?
So there are a ton of options out there. I think it's most helpful to really divide them into 2 categories. There's your classic freestanding patio heater with the umbrella dome. That was the most popular option for a long time. And now we have more of the mounted options, so they'll mount to your wall or ceiling. We're always looking between whether you need the freestanding option or a mounted option when it comes to patio heaters.
And how do you determine which one to go or which one do you need? Is it just from the fuel source or permanent installation versus temporary?
Yeah, so the fuel source does have a lot to do with it. Ultimately, it's going to come down to whether or not you want that heater to be portable. Mm-hmm. If you're just looking for a heater to use for a few hours on the weekend, when you're having some people over in your backyard, then a lot of times the propane portable freestanding heaters will be the better option. You can move it around and have it exactly to where you need. That's a common option on restaurants' patios as well. If they don't want to worry about heating the entire patio, they can just move around the portable one. If you're more interested in having a fixed piece of equipment that will just be heating that one area, then you go into the mounted options.
Is there a difference in heat output or heat efficiency between the 2 options, freestanding versus mounted?
The freestanding heaters that AEI offers are either propane or natural gas burning. The gas heaters usually put out a higher heat output. The freestanding ones will be a higher heat output than the mounted electric heater options.
And with that high heat output, it's not a directional heat, right? You can't really control where the heat goes. It will be in the circle around the heater, right?
Correct.
How big is that circle?
It can vary depending on which heaters you go for, but usually you'll get about a 12-foot circle covered.
12 foot will heat a patio?
Yeah, they do very well. And it is, all of the heaters that we deal with are infrared heat. So it just heats the objects and people that are within that heat spread. So however you have the heater set up, that's what it's going to heat up surrounding it. It won't be like a forced air where you can push the heat into a general direction. It's just going to heat whatever falls underneath that heat spread.
Okay, that is my next question. Infrared heat. Everybody wants infrared heat because it heats objects and people instead of heating the air, right? So you have
Correct.
less heat loss and more efficient heat. The electricity or the gas you are using is getting spent more efficiently, which is awesome. Now, the question is, are all outdoor heaters infrared, including gas, electric, natural gas, and propane?
Yes, so I will say the vast majority are infrared. Whether it's natural gas, propane, or electric, you know it's infrared if there's no fan. If it's
Mhm.
not a forced air type of heating system, then we're dealing with infrared heat. Where infrared heat, it'll just turn on and it's only going to heat what's in its direction. So it is a lot more efficient when working with heating up patios because you don't want to pay to just be pushing out air into the patio. With the infrared
Yeah,
heat, it'll just be targeted at what you want to be heating up.
that makes total sense. And then that way you don't even have to worry about the wind. The wind makes it chilly, but at least you don't lose the heat.
Exactly. The wind won't affect where that heat is going. If it was
Hmm.
forced air, the wind will just take that hot air away. But with
Yeah.
infrared, the wind won't be affecting where the heat is pointed.
Okay. And with infrared heat, if you have those overhead heaters, you can point it to where you want the heat to go. So, like a seating area or like maybe a dining area in your outdoor space.
Correct. And it's always going to be the closer you are to the heater, the more intensely you'll feel that heat. So if with the
Okay.
freestanding one, you get about a 12-foot circle at the edge of 12 feet, it will be warmer than when the heater was off, but it's not going to feel as intense as if you're standing directly underneath the heater.
What about those ceiling mounted heaters? They are far away. They can be 9, 10 feet away.
Mhm.
Do you still feel the heat?
Yes, you'll definitely still feel the heat. They adjust the heat output for those mounting height requirements. With the 6,000 watt Infratech heater mounted at about 10 feet, you'll get roughly a 10 by 10 foot coverage area. If you're going to put that directly over a dining table outside, you'll fully be heating up that table. The further you go out, the heat will lessen, but you're still heating up that area up to the 10 by 10 foot area.
Is there a difference among infrared heaters when it comes to the wavelengths and different functionality of the heater itself?
So the wavelengths is something you want to think about. If you're going with an electric heater, then the wavelength comes into play. That doesn't affect your heat output as much as just what the heater looks like. A shortwave
Okay.
heater will have a stronger orange glow than a medium wave heater. So that's not going to affect overall the heat that you feel. It'll just affect how the heaters look. As far as controlling that heat output or the heat intensity, there are options depending on what models you go for, where you can have a high and low setting. You can control the heat output from the heater. With Infratech's custom controls, you can go from 0 to 100%, dialing in exactly how hot you want that heater to be.
Hmm. Okay. And so people don't want too bright of a glow so that they don't look weird.
It makes it feel a less commercial. That brighter
Right.
glow makes you think of a warehouse or construction site.
Right.
It's not
Mhm.
that kind of cozy feeling you're looking for on your patio.
And what kind of wavelengths do you go for?
For the longer the wavelength, the less intense that glow will be.
The longer the wavelengths, the less glow you get. You mentioned you go from 0 to 100 really fast. So that's with electric heaters, right? You
Yeah,
get heating fast.
the Infratech heaters, I think within about a minute or two, it'll be heated up to its full capacity. The 0 to 100 is just controlling that heat output that you want. So if you only want the heater to be doing 25% of its overall heat output, then you can just adjust that on your dial or slide dimmer and get exactly the heat output that you're looking for.
Do gas heaters have similar functionality?
Gas heaters are going to be a high or a low setting, like 50% or 100% power. With electric heaters, it's easier to regulate the voltage. With a gas heater, you'd have to regulate the gas pressure. It's easier for gas just to have a high or a low, just two settings within that
Mhm.
valve. Where with an electric heater, it's easier to regulate the temperature from 0 to 100%.
How long does it take for a gas heater to heat up to
Gas
like a
heaters
full?
will be roughly about the same time. With any of our heaters, by 3 minutes, you should have the full heat output. Depending on the
Okay.
model that you're going with, we have one brand that we work with, Sunstar, has a piece of glass to cover up that front burner. It gives it a really nice look and diminishes that glow we were talking about.
Mm.
Because of that glass, it will take an extra minute or so to heat up to full potential.
Because it creates a barrier, right?
Creates a barrier that helps to make sure your heat is evenly dispersed through that thick piece of glass.
I feel like we're moving into this next question of electric versus gas. I don't know if you get this question a lot being customer facing, but we do for sure. When people are maybe have access to natural gas and they have option to do electric heaters and they just cannot decide what is the difference between gas and electric and which application is each type of heater best for.
Yeah, so it's nice to have both options because in some parts of the country, they won't have the option to run natural gas. They may have just a large propane tank powering their house for all of their gas appliances. In that sense, it wouldn't make more sense to be using their gas supply. They would rather hook up with some electric heaters. If you do have both options available, natural gas, propane, or electric heaters, then it really just comes down to what do you like the look of more? It's something that's going to be in your backyard. So you want to be happy with the overall aesthetics of your area. So the gas heaters, like I said, will usually be a higher heat output overall, but it's not always necessary. If you're in Southern California where it doesn't get too chilly at night, an electric heater might be the better option. It really will come down to the customer's specific wants and needs. If they need a specific gas type, we'll look into the natural gas heaters. If they have all the options available, you're not going to be disappointed with any of the heaters we have. So let's just go for something that you like the look of the most.
Electric heaters are more aesthetically pleasing and can be hidden away.
There's usually less moving parts in an electric heater. There's no gas valve, no pilot assembly or anything like that. So they can make the overall design of the heater a lot sleeker. It's something that can be mounted up into the ceiling and it's almost out of sight, out of mind. You won't even notice it until it's on and providing that heat.
I like the recessed options too, so it's completely recessed into the ceiling.
Yeah.
And you don't even see it.
Yeah, those look very nice too. And different options on colors for the flush mount can really dial it in to match your patio.
And I like how Infratech and other manufacturers of electric heaters started coming out with those decorative faces.
Yeah.
They make heaters look so much nicer. It's a simple plate that just looks nice, but it makes a big difference.
I totally agree. Infratech's motif collection gives another level to the aesthetics of the heater, makes it more pleasing to look at.
As less industrial.
Yeah, absolutely.
The verdict on gas versus electric would be gas for more heat and electric for better aesthetic.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. If your property isn't restricted to one type or the other, then it's going to come down to what you prefer the look of more. The electric heaters are a sleeker design. It's easier to hide them into your installation. But I've worked with customers who noticed the gas heater out at a restaurant and they loved the look at it. They have both options available, but they prefer the look of a sun pack and one of that in their backyard.
What about other considerations like installation?
For installation, for gas, you need to be making sure you're working with the licensed plumber that can provide the adequate gas pressure and run the gas lines to the heater. For electric, you need to make sure you're working with a licensed electrician and that you have the correct power available to be running that heater. So either way, with the installations of a mounted heater, you should be working with a professional to make sure it's installed correctly and within your local and national installation codes. If you're working with a freestanding propane one, that's really simple assembly. All you need to do is get a screwdriver and put some screws in to complete the assembly and then hook up your propane tank. So it really will depend on which kind of heater you're going with for how involved your installation is going to be.
Yeah. And the only downside of propane, like a freestanding propane, would be having to remember to replace the tank.
Yeah, and that's a big issue we're looking at right now. As people start using their heaters more and using their barbecues less, people will call us and say their heaters aren't turning on. A lot of times it's because they were using that propane tank over the summer to use their barbecue and it's just out of gas.
That's an easy fix.
Those are easy calls to get. Usually just swap out the tank and they're happy customers.
Okay. When it comes to the difference between electric and gas, are there different safety concerns?
It's very important to be working with the licensed plumber that can run those gas lines. If we have any issues with gas leaks, that can be a very dangerous problem. We don't want anybody's house to be at risk of fire damage or anything like that. You need to make sure that there's no gas leaks anywhere within your installation. And for electrical, if you have a loose connection somewhere and an arc occurs in your wiring, that can also be a fire hazard. There are safety precautions you need to be taking with either option.
What about when it comes to installation? Are there any special permits or rules and regulations for either kind of heaters?
Yeah, so there will be specific code for your local area and then national code for the whole country. Any of the heaters that AEI sells are safe to be used. They're all licensed and certified to be installed in America, but
Hmm.
there are different local requirements. Sometimes you need to have a specific breaker size to run this type of heater. And that's where working with an electrician will make sure that you're checking off all of those boxes.
Your electrician should be able to guide you through the codes and regulations when it comes to those appliances.
Absolutely.
But there are no territories in the United States that don't allow gas or electric heaters.
There's no areas that will restrict either type of heater.
Okay. What do you think is some of the most recent technological advances in the outdoor heating industry and something customers should look out for?
What Infratech really leads the industry on is their control options. With gas heaters, you're not going to be able to exactly dial in the heat output that you want, but with Infratech's custom controls, you'll get true heat intensity, being able to control the heater from 0 to 100%. You can set up different zones of control, which is very important for customers like a hotel or a restaurant. If they want to be heating one patio but not the other, you can set up different zones of control for that. And then you can always integrate a timer into your installation as well, just to make sure they're not left on overnight and can extend the overall life of that heater.
Are those controls wired or wireless?
So their Infratech controls will be wired, but they can be compatible with some wireless technology as well. Their universal panel, it will control the heaters with just a standard 120-volt slide dimmer switch. So it's very common for customers to go out and purchase their own Bluetooth 120-volt slide dimmer switch. And then you can control that Bluetooth switch through an app on your phone. I've had customers hook it up to their Amazon Alexa, and they can just tell their Alexa, please turn on my heaters to 60% on the patio, and it'll take care of heating that area to the exact heat output they're looking for.
I think my Alexa started talking to you.
Really?
Okay, and then what about smart home integration?
For smart home integrations, Infratech has their home management panel. If you have a pre-existing home management system controlling your backyard lighting and maybe a fountain, you can purchase the home management panel and integrate the heaters into that pre-existing system. So if there's a Control 4 is a popular home management system. If you have a Control 4 tablet on the wall, then you can integrate it so you have heaters control right at that pre-existing tablet on the wall.
Okay, that's great. Infratech is electric heater. Are there any options like this for gas heaters?
For gas heaters, there are options. Sunpack with their remote controlled 2-stage heater, they offer a home automation transmitter that you can install. When you do that with the gas heater, though, you're going to lose out on the 2-stage option. Then it will just be on or off when it's controlled through the home management system. With electric heaters, you're able to be more exact with the heat output that you want.
Yeah, I think that's a big selling point for a lot of people, especially these days. Smart homes are so prevalent and people are just trying to automate as much as they can. It's great that outdoor heating industry is moving in that direction as well.
Absolutely. If you don't already have a complete home management system, you can get some smart switches. Or if you are interested in the home management full control system, they have stuff that can accommodate that as well. And then they have your standard value controls if you just want a simple on and off. With Infratech, they really have you covered for any type of control option that you're looking for.
What about the cost? It's great to have all these options, but when it comes to cost considerations, what are the initial costs of getting an outdoor heater installed? Is there any ongoing cost when it comes to maintenance?
So that's probably the most important question for customers. What is this all going to cost me? So generally speaking, the electric heaters are going to be cheaper to purchase but the cost of running electricity to those heaters can be more expensive. The gas
Yeah.
heaters can be a little more expensive to purchase, but typically, and depending on where you are in the country, natural gas will be cheaper to run. So it's a smaller barrier to entry price wise with the electric heaters, but then you'll pay more to run them. Larger barrier to entry with the gas heaters, but then they're cheaper to run. So it comes out to about even with either option because of those offset costs. That's all going to come into locally what your prices are. And you can look up what your electrical charges are going to be to run a 6,000 watt heater for an hour, or what your natural gas charges are from your local gas company.
And what about ongoing maintenance on gas heaters or electric heaters?
Yes, so either one will need to have some routine maintenance on them. With the electric heaters, usually all you're going to have to do is swap out an element every few years. There's not many moving parts in an electric heater.
How does that work?
Swapping out an Infratech electric element is very similar to replacing a fluorescent light bulb. All it takes on the Infratech heater is a nut on either end of the element that holds the wire in place. If you turn off your breaker, you can remove the nut on either end, take out the element, and place in a new one. It's a very simple replacement.
And you said every few years?
I believe the lifespan for an Infratech element is 5,000 hours. It should last a very long time if everything was installed correctly. With
Okay.
things like the clearances to combustibles when installing these heater, that will come into play for the overall lifespan. If you don't give the heater enough room to combustible material, it can be a fire hazard for the material around it. It can also restrict the ventilation around that heater, so it can overheat and burn out some of those internals quicker than they should.
Yeah, if you follow instructions in the installation manual, you should be fine.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
For all of our brands, I find that the installation manuals are very easy to work with. They're all user friendly. They have great diagrams showing those clearances that you need to maintain. And whether it is gas or electric, we have plenty of customers that call us. They've had the heater installed for 10 years and just finally need to replace an element. If
So
everything's
when they get to the point of replacing, what is the cost of replacing that element?
So to replace an element, depending on the wattage of your heater, will affect the price of that element. But it will be anywhere from $100 to $200 for a replacement element.
Okay.
If you do call AEI for tips or service on that, since we are only handling business to business sales, we would refer the end user to an online dealer to make the purchases for the parts.
They should just go to the place where they bought it from, right?
That's always a good option. Just go back to whoever you purchased it from. Whether it is a gas or an electric heater, replacement parts are readily available. So you'll always be able to replace that heater. Another great selling point on these heaters is they're built to last. It's not something that you're going to use for a year and then need to replace the entire heater. Usually with a few small replacement parts, you can have the heater looking and functioning like new.
Do you have any tips to make those heaters last longer, maybe work more efficiently, aside from clearances? Obviously, that's a good tip. Make sure you maintain the proper clearances to combustibles. Is there anything else that people should be aware of?
Yes, with any type of gas heater, making sure that your pilot assembly is cleared out is some routine maintenance that you can do just to make sure it's functioning well. It's common for spiders or little bits of debris to get around that pilot assembly and restrict the gas flow. So if you take a can of compressed air or an air compressor and blow out that pilot assembly once or twice a year, that should help your heater is able to breathe as it's supposed to. With something like the electric heater, the combustible clearance is a big issue just to make sure that the heater is able to vent like it's supposed to. But like I said, those ones don't have as many moving parts. If you're somewhere very close to the ocean and you have a mounted electric heater, we recommend just taking a rag with some fresh water and wiping the heater down every other month or so, just to make sure there's not some big salt water buildup that's going to go onto the heaters.
Yeah, you want to pick the heater with marine grade steel.
Now there's plenty of marine grade options out there for either gas type. If you're doing natural gas or electric, there are marine grade options. So
Mhm.
that's definitely something that we're recommending for those customers that are right near the water. But there's a lot of customers that have a 10 or 15-year-old heater where the marine grade option wasn't out there yet. So just to work with those customers, it's still something that you'll be able to maintain. Just takes a little routine.
Once a month, not bad.
And you think about it like any outdoor appliance will require some routine maintenance. If you install a grill in your backyard, it's probably best if you clean that after you use it. Just
Mhm.
like an outdoor heater that you're going to pay to install, it's best to make sure it's cleaned and maintained routinely.
And when it comes to outdoor installations, do these heaters need to be installed under a roof, some kind of cover, or can they be out in the open?
So they can definitely be installed out in the open. They're outdoor heaters, totally weatherproof. But for that infrared heat where it's directional, you are going to get the best output and best overall coverage if we're in some protected area. With the gas heaters, things like wind can blow out your pilot assembly. So if you have it on a protected wall where wind isn't constantly pushing around that flame, the heater will function better. So they're
Mhm.
totally weatherproof, but the more protected your area is, the more intensely you're going to feel that heat.
Gotcha. That's great information. Do you have any tips for the customers based on your experience? You talk to customers day in, day out. What kind of heaters do you usually recommend? Do you have some favorites that customers always tend to pick in different categories like electric, gas, freestanding, mounted?
Yeah. For my favorites, I will say if I was going to be putting in heaters in my backyard, I prefer the Infratech heaters with the custom controls. Their 6,000 watt heater, I think, is a great option. It's very versatile. Even if you are installing the strongest heater Infratech offers and you're in a space like I'm in Southern California, I'm not going to need all that heat all the time. With the custom control, you can always dim them down if you don't need the complete heat output. So that's what I would go for as my favorite. And then just for general tips, what I always try to explain to customers is to prepare for the worst. You want to get as much heat coverage as you can. So it's better to, if we have a 20-foot long patio, let's say, go with two heaters fully cover that area. Some customers think, let me just go with one heater, and that definitely would work. It's just much easier to turn the heat down if you did a little over coverage than to only have that one heater. You can't go up past that, you know? So we
Yeah.
always try to recommend to customers to cover your whole area, even with a little bit of extra, because some nights it does get a little cold. If there's a little rain, you'll be happy that you have the option to go higher on the heat. If you only had the one heater, you can't go anything past that.
And the cost of adding one extra heater is not going to be huge because you're paying for installation already. So it's just a few $100s more, probably, right?
Installation cost for one heater or for two heaters from the electrician that you're paying to install them, it's probably going to be about the same. So it's
Yeah.
best to be fully prepared for any scenario that might be happening in your backyard.
Controls that you were mentioning, how many heaters can you have on that control? Is it just one? Oh,
Infratech
really?
custom controls, they'll build those panels to your specifications. Any type of phase and voltage that your property may have, whether it's residential 240 volt is very common, or it's a commercial 480 volt installation. Infratech will build that panel specifically for you. You can have it with one heater. I've sold relay panels with 18 relays controlling 36 different heaters. So handle any needs that you have.
Would it be overkill for a residential one heater situation or two heater situation to have that whole panel?
It's actually probably the most common option for customers to go with in a residential. If you do two heaters on that panel, to have full control over your heat intensity, to
Mm-hmm.
have a slide dimmer switch that matches the rest of the switches in your house. Those types of things come into play and are very important to the customers. So I don't think it's overkill to go with one of those custom panels in a backyard.
Oh, so it's going to be like a dimmer switch that's going to be user facing. And then you have this extra panel probably next to your electrical panel or something like
The
that. Okay.
panels will be installed out of sight on the side of the house or in a garage. Or the only thing you're walking up to is that slide dimmer and timer on the wall.
Very nice. What do you think is the future of outdoor heating? Do you notice any trends, anything exciting that you see happening in the industry?
Yeah, there is a new model of heater that Infotech released recently. It's a 5200 watt, 48-inch heater. It's a
Mhm.
new heater model that they find to be more versatile. It can be installed in a lot of different patios and installations. So that's something exciting for a new product on the market. I think you're going to see more options on marine grade, like we talked about, just to make
Mhm.
sure that these manufacturers are able to cover customers in all different scenarios and locations in the country. So I think that the material being used, you're seeing increasing and just improving day by day. And then seeing some new models coming out that are just breaking edge and keeping in tune with the newest wants on the market.
Mhm. Maybe something more aesthetically pleasing and more like wireless controls. That's
Yeah.
where I would want the industry to go.
Yeah, I know a lot of people I talk to are concerned about whether or not they're able to control their heaters through an app on their phone. If you're going like with something like the universal control and getting that Bluetooth switch, that option's out there for you. I think
Yeah.
you're going to see more and more people trying to find ways to offer things like that.
Oh, that's exciting. We're so used to controlling things from our phone. It's just,
Everything's through your phone nowadays.
and pretty soon it's going to be a chip in your brain.
You'll think it and your heater comes on 60%.
Yes. We'll have the same conversation 5 years later.
We'll see how accurate we were.
Thank you so much for this fun conversation, Grant. It's been awesome. I think it's very helpful for anybody shopping for a patio heater or just trying to do their research.
Yeah,
Maybe
thank you for having me. I enjoy talking about this type of stuff here at AEI. That's the majority of what we do in the customer service department all day is just help people to answer these types of questions and determine what would be the best option for them.
that you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Wow, that was a lot of information. I hope you found it helpful. I will put all of the links in the description so that you can easily find them. If you like the video, make sure to give it thumbs up, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss the future videos. Thank you so much for being with us. Have a great day. See you in the next episode.
The Modern Blaze Show.